Hey guys, Ken Smith Fishing. First off, I know the light's not great. Don't worry, you're not going to be looking at me for very long. You ever wondered when you look at a boat, new boat, used boat, probably more used boats, but what is a good deal? What makes one boat a better deal than another boat? Or maybe what boat carries its value further after it's a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years old? Or what's the value of a warranty on a used boat versus a boat that doesn't have as much warranty? Most of you guys found me, so we're going to answer that. Most of you guys found me originally from the Great Bass Boat Search of 2021. I'll put a link right there if you've never seen them. I can't imagine that you haven't if you're watching this channel. But that video, so I've been asked a couple times to update that video, and I've not done it because frankly, all the boats would score a little better, right? You can get C-deck in most boats now. Most boats have USB connectors. They've reconfigured their dashes. A lot of stuff has happened, and maybe some of it because of the work we did in those videos. I know some of it certainly. There were some additions, and some boat manufacturers kind of thought differently about how they were building boats from that. But I haven't been motivated to redo that because really the only boats I've been interested in that appear to be different was the Puma STS, which you reviewed. I'm curious now to see the Cougar STS. Kind of curious to get in the new Ranger R boat, although I'm told there's not a lot of difference between the R and the L. Ranger guys can throw a fit about that, but that comes from Ranger guys. Now, I am curious to get in an Icon, so if anybody can get me access to an Icon, I'd love to take one of those out and test run that boat. But this particular series of videos, and this is several, I can tell you I've got so much data here. This particular series of videos, I think is really going to be of interest to all of us. Those who are both looking to buy a boat and also those who are looking to sell a boat. So I'm going to call this the 2024 Used Boat Buying Guide video series. And you see here, all this data is compiled from Bass Boat Central. Now look, there's a lot of places you can sell a boat. You know, the Texas Fishing Forum, there's several Florida Fishing Forum. There's a bunch of them. This one, and I did the research, this one has more bass boats, current model bass boats for sale than any of the other sites by a long ways. So I wanted to do a similar search to what I did in 2031, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, when we did whenever we did the Bass Boat Search. It's that same kind of series of boats. So what I decided this time versus getting hung up on 20 or 21 foot boats, I said 250 motors and up. So to be included in the database for all the research we're about to go through. Well, we do have an open door policy here at Smith household. So that was Hollis. If y'all hadn't seen Hollis in a while, getting very tall. So not sure where I left off, but to be in the database for this particular series, you have to have a 250 or bigger motor. You have to be listed on Bass Boat Central from September 1st through December the 22nd, which is when I cut off the final little bit of data. And I was working off of this spreadsheet right here. So this is a massive spreadsheet. And by the way, I'll tell you right now, I did the work. If you want a copy of this spreadsheet for your own research, to check my numbers, or maybe you've got some other ideas I'd love to hear, just email me, kensmithfishingoutlook.com, and I'll be glad to send you a copy of that spreadsheet. That is the data where all this comes from. And kind of across the top there, you see we've got motor hours, whether it's a racing motor or not, the year of the boat, the year of the motor, whether it's got a hydraulic jack plate. I really tried to look to see what are the big ticket items on a boat that move the price on a boat up or down. So that's the basic spreadsheet. And we had 234 boats, which kind of surprised me. I didn't think there'd be that many bass boats for sale at any given time. And by the way, there's that many more that were listed prior to September. I'm assuming some of these boats might be sold, but there's no way to know. As soon as I sold my boat, I let Al know, pull it off the website because I didn't want to get calls and emails about it. But there's a whole bunch of bass boats for sale, but I wanted really the ones that were up for sale. And by the way, so if you put your boat up for sale in June and then you refreshed it with a new price, it would show up in this search. So out of those 234 boats, I kind of wanted to break them down a couple different ways to show you what we're looking at here. So in the 2024s, there are 7 new boats listed. And by the way, I didn't talk about this from that earlier slide. But the other thing, you had to have a price on here, right? I can't do any of my data if there's no price on there. So there's a bunch of 2024s on there from dealers and 2023s too that say call for pricing. I didn't include those boats. I wanted a data set to work off of. So the 2024s, there's 2 Blazers ranging from 90 to 95,000 bucks. There's 3 Icons ranging from 98 to 126,000. There's 2 Skeeters, 70 to 90. And then there was a 24 Ranger with a 22 motor, which I thought was kind of weird, for 79,000. And then in the 2023s, there were 68 boats. 48 boats appear to be what I'd call used. And what I mean by that is they had 6 or more hours on the motor. And then there were 26 that looked like they were still sitting in a dealer that either showed they were new or didn't show any hours on them. So there's still 26 2023s out there for sale. And then there were 43 22s, 46 21s, 18 20s, 19 10s, and then another 43 boats that range from 2014 to 2018. And by the way, if you don't know much about statistics, interestingly, even the political polls will tell you, you really don't need a real big sample size to get accurate results as long as you have a truly anonymous, or it's not the right word, but you're not only calling people in one neighborhood, right? So this 234 boats is a really good sample size to give us some pretty accurate data on boats. And not in this video, but in a later video, I'm going to do a little deeper dive on specific makers and specific models within makers too. Some of that data might not be quite as accurate, but will probably help guys who are looking to buy a boat or looking to sell a boat. So then when I broke them down by boat manufacturers, we got 4 Allisons, we got 30 Bass Cats, 3 Blazers, 2 Bullets. That is not a right number next to Caymas. Bear with me, guys. Sorry about that. In the version you're looking at, it shows 20, but in my version it showed 2, so I had to correct that. So 20 Caymas, 3 Falcon, 3 Icons, 42 Phoenix, 34 Nitros, 46 Rangers, 29 Skeeters, 11 Tritons, and 9 Vexuses. Now, somebody knows the number. I would be really curious how accurate that is for percent of new boats sold. So let me use an easy one. Who's around 20? So there were 20 Caymas's boat. That would tend to indicate that 10% of all the boats that are for sale on here are Caymas's. I'd love to know if all the bass boats sold last year, if Caymas had a 10% market share in new boats too. No way for me to know that, but in my mind, that looks like a pretty good, a pretty accurate number on the number. You look at that and you think, yeah, I still think Ranger probably sells more boats than anybody else. And I think Phoenix is probably right there behind them. And then Nitro and Skeeter and Bass Cat are all kind of right in there, second or third, fourth, fifth. So I think that's pretty accurate. And then you look at the guys like the Allisons and the Bullets of the world, very specialty boats, don't sell a whole lot of boats. Same with the Blazers, 3 boats in there. So gaining market share, Blazer anyway, but I think it's gaining market share, but still pretty small player in the bass boat marketplace. And then I did the same thing. I broke them down by motors, and I was actually a little bit surprised by this. I knew there were a lot more black motors than anything else out there, but a single Honda, 3 Suzukis, 5 Evinrudes still hanging around. I think if I remember right, they may have all still been on. And by the way, so I did not include a couple of boats. I'm sorry. I didn't include Avid. I didn't include Legends. If you didn't make the first search, you kind of didn't make this search. How about that? 5 Evinrudes, 187 Mercuries. Now, the thing that really surprised me about this is there was only 1 Verado and there was only 1 racing motor for sale, which is weird to me because I know several guys who have racing motors. I don't know if they sell faster, so they're not on the website long, if they sell more in season, or if they're just that rare. I mean, that tells you that, less than 0.5% of all the motors for sale right now are racing motors. There were 4 300s mixed in there, so about 2%, and then there were 38 Yamahas, and I did this throughout this. You'll see where I did this. That is very Skeeter specific. 29 of those are on Skeeters. There were a couple on Bass Cats, there were a couple on Rangers. But the vast majority of Yamahas, Yamaha has really tied their brand to the Skeeter boats and vice versa. So if you see a Yamaha, it's probably attached to a Skeeter. Now, the first thing I wanted to kind of break down, and I know this video's already gotten long, so we're going to cut it off right at 15 minutes, and we'll start right where we left off on the next one. But of the new 2023s for sale, so those are boats that show 0 hours or sitting at a dealership and show less than 5 hours, 5 hours or less. There's 26 boats with the average price of $77,400, let's call it. Of those, 54% of them have hydraulic jack plates. 77% have 2 graphs or less. There's a couple of them that have 0. And then only 10 of them have graphs bigger than 10 inches. There's a lot of small graphs, a lot of package boats. I'll talk more about that later. Only 1 in 3 basically have forward-facing sonar already sitting on them. Only 1 of those 26 boats had a 360 imaging on it. This is one of those things where the lithium, so 11% showed that they have lithiums. And I kind of made an assumption as I did all this data that it seems like if you have lithiums, you probably talk about it. So I assume that that's a pretty accurate number for how many actually have lithium batteries, because there's a pretty good expense in that. Only 2 have the stealth or power pole charging systems. Now, I also know that you're seeing that less now in lithium batteries, but guys are still putting those systems on lithium batteries. And I included that because I think I want one on my next boat, and the guys that I know that have them absolutely love them. So I included that, and it's expensive, right? They're $1,500-ish bucks for a new one. 9 of them, so basically 1 in 3, don't have any power poles on those new boats for sale. And you'll see in a minute that's skewed greatly compared to what's in the marketplace. And then 22 of 26 are single consoles. Now, that's going to bear out pretty accurate across all the boats for sale and all the year models you're going to see. But for a couple, specifically, I recall Bass Cat and I think Nitro or Phoenix. There's a couple of boat manufacturers that have very easily uninstallable second consoles. And I included them because if you're looking at a boat with a second console versus one without, especially if it's removable, that second console is $1,500 to $2,500. So if the boats are priced similarly, you're probably getting a better deal on the boat that's got a second console, or if you just want a second console. So what's interesting to me, the first thing that really jumped out at me as I did this was the contrast between the new boats and the used boats in the 2023s. The new boat average price was $77,400. The used boat average price was $78,900. So it was $1,500 more to buy a used boat than a new boat. And you think, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah, it does. When you dig into the data, and that's what I was able to do. So the average price, again, roughly $79,000 for the used boats. 83% of them have a hydraulic jack plate versus 54% of the new ones. 76% have 3 or more graphs, up to 5 that I counted on one boat, or actually a couple boats. That's versus 23% of the new ones. Several of the graph setups in the new ones that were 2 graph setups, or even some that were 3 and 4, are 16-inch and bigger units. So I didn't see any of that in the new boats right now. 37 of the 42, 88% have forward-facing sonar, including, again, a couple that had, like I had, where at one point I had 2 different forward-facing sonars on my boat. 8 had 360, 19% versus 4% of the new ones. A third of them roughly had lithiums versus 1 in 10. 15%, basically double, had a stealth or a power pole charging system. Basically, 88%, almost all of them had power poles versus 65%. And then the dual console, again, was pretty close across both of them together. So, sorry, I keep seeing errors I have in here and fix them as I go. So this is that same data in a little easier to read format. So middle column is the new boats, average price is $77,300 versus the used boats in the right. And kind of start seeing pretty quickly here why that is. You got way more hydraulic jack plates. You have way more graphs. You have way bigger graphs. You have 3 times more forward facing sonar. You have 3 times more 360. You have 3 times more lithium batteries. You have twice as many power pole charging systems. You got more power poles. And by the way, one of the things I'll talk more about when we get to talking about power poles were some of the new boat power poles here, and Skeeter's the biggest offender on this. They're those package boats with a power pole. So you got a 1500 to 20, and by the way, when I say power pole, Raptors, Talons, you name it, they're all in here. I just generically call them power poles. I think I correct that later, but you know, those things run $1,500 to $2,500 a piece. So if you only got one, the boat should be priced quite a bit less than the one that has 2. And then dual consoles, not much difference there. So the question then becomes, what's the value you can attach to those to start comparing those boats, whether it be new boat to used boat, or different used boats to each other, or 23s to 22s, or 23s to 21s. And we're going to figure that all out. But I want to come back to that because I thought the best way to determine that would be to go another year model longer and look at the 22s where they're all used boats, so it'd be easier to compare the data because I got a bunch of used boats in 22s as well. Before we go there though, this dawned on me, and I don't know if you saw it on my spreadsheet or not, but I have a spot on the spreadsheet that shows when the warranty expires for those that set it in their ad. And there are boats out there in the used boat marketplace. So and I'm going to use 190-ish of these boats have Mercury's on them. So let's just use that. Mercury standard factory warranty is 3 years. It's a limited, just like all of them, they're limited liability, but their standard warranty is 3 years. There are used boats out there that are warranted until 2030. So they got 7 years left on the warranty, which means the guy has bought the warranty up. There is value in that, and we'll come back to that later and talk about that. But before we talk about motors, let's talk about boats. One of the things I don't think guys pay enough attention to when they're buying a boat, we all look at the motor warranties, but you better check your boat warranty too. So you'll see in just a second, there's almost all of them there are the same with the exception of one, and you can see who's in the background there with my Basscat logo. Also, when you're buying a boat, if you're buying a boat, a lot of times, you know, during boat, they run, Mercury and Yamaha both run specials where you can get a longer warranty period on it. And I've already talked about that. Actually, I said it wrong earlier. I said 2030. I had noted this when I was doing the research. So there was a boat out there with warranty till 2031. And if you look at the warranty itself, you know what? Rather than doing that, I'm going to come back to that because that's germane to a later conversation. So just file it away in a future video. Real soon, we're going to talk about warranties. And we'll come back to that, and we'll break out the differences in the hull warranties and the motor warranties for these boats as well. Now, motor hours are something I get tons of questions about. So I have never heard anybody be able to document what the average hours on a used boat are for a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year old boat. I now have that data. So of the 23s, 42 boats show hours. I've already mentioned that. And they show hours ranging from 4 hours. And I know that boat with 4 hours, even though it should have fallen on the new boat, it's a guy listing the boat. So it's a used boat. From 4 hours to 400 hours. So the average is 97 hours. The median is 85 hours, where the middle really falls. And then because there was only one boat with 400 hours, I didn't know statistically how that would impact it. So I took out the boat with 400 hours and the next most hours with 220. And then the bottom two being sold by the individuals, which were 2 that had 4 hours. And it's still only about 91 hours. So I think that's pretty accurate. Somewhere around 90 hours is average for a new boat. And you got to remember, just because it says it's a 2023, some of these boats were probably sold more than a year ago when the 2023s came out in late 2022. So some of those boats are more than a year old. And then in the 2022s, I got 32 boats showing 15 to 550 hours. My average hours is now up to 155. The median's 125. Again, you take out the top two, a 550 and a 520, and the two lowest, and the average is about 138 hours. I went ahead then and just did the numbers because I was curious on the 2021s, and the average is about 181 hours. Now, I personally think these statistics are probably slightly under the true number for averages. And the reason I believe that is, if I was sitting out there, honestly, if I was that guy with 400 hours on my boat and it was a year old, I probably wouldn't have put it in my ad. I'd probably make you call me and ask me about it, because at least then I get to talk to you and tell you about why my boat with 400 hours is worth the same as a guy whose boat's got 100 hours on it. So I think a bunch of the ones who did not mention their hours are bigger hour boats. So I'll bet you those 1 year old boats, the hours are probably closer to, 105, 110 maybe. And likewise, the 2022s, probably add 10 or 15 hours to those as well. So, I kind of went down this rabbit hole, but this is kind of where the numbers to me showed. So a 2023 average about 97 hours. Now, I personally believe there's and you can tell when you look at these, right? There's a bunch of pros boats, and pros generally run a boat for a year, and pros put more hours on boats than just about anybody else. So because their boats are included in this, there is a skew that first year of more hours. I can almost bet you the guy who has 400 hours, if he isn't a pro, he's trying to be a pro. So we've got a little bit of skew from pros boats. And then I also think most of the 2023s are probably more than a year old at this point. So, about 100 hours average for those boats. And then 2022 is about 155, 191, and you kind of see a pattern there. After that first year, you put, about another 60, and then it drops to about another 40 or 50, and then it kind of stays at that level. So that probably also suggests that the guys that fish more have newer boats to some degree. And looking at Rayburn and Toledo, I believe that's probably true. Now, the question is, can you assign value to more or less hours? And I think there's more questions underneath that, and that is, what kind of hours are they? And then if they're kind of in that band, right? If it's, a 1 year old boat and it's 80 to 120 hours, I would think that's kind of right in that band of average. If you get down under 50 hours, you gotta say that boat, because remember, it's not just hours on the motor, it's hours of the boat being out in the weather and being out in the waves. So I think there is some value to that. It's really hard to assign, and I think I'm gonna leave that more up to you to decide that. And likewise, personally, if a guy had if a guy had 400 hours on a 1 year old boat, even more than 200 hours, I want to know a lot more about that. And I also would really want to know what the warranty is on that boat. I would anticipate or expect to get more warranty from that guy because of the hours on that boat. Now, I mentioned this earlier, and I'm gonna end with this little bit more conversation about warranties, about hull warranties. And I mentioned it's really important. And there's a couple of things here. Most of these warranties are really similar. This is a cutout from the Ranger warranty. And what I caught in all of these as I read through them, and I'll be honest, I had not paid attention to this. My last several boats have been new, right? So they come with a new warranty on them. But it specifically says in the warranty for a second owner, the boat is purchased through a dealer. Now you can see the rest of the stuff down there. Basically what the Ranger warranty says is lifetime warranty for the first owner, and then 10 years from date of original purchase for the second owner if they purchase it through a dealer. Now, I would want clarity on that if I was buying a Ranger from somebody other than a dealer. Could I buy it through the dealer in an in and out type situation? Or if I just go to the dealer and they do the paperwork, does that then transfer that warranty? I don't know the answer to that. And if you go down all the warranties, you look there. So Ranger's lifetime for the original plus 10, Camus, lifetime of the original, lifetime for the original. Actually, Camus, Nitro, Skeeter, and Phoenix are all basically some form or another of the same wording. It's lifetime for the original owner, and then a 10-year from the date of purchase. So if you bought a 4-year-old boat, there's 6 years left on that warranty. But every one of them that I could find where it says that you have to buy it through a dealer. I would want to understand that better before I bought a boat. The Bass Cat is the only one, and look, I found in some forums where Allison's supposed to have a great warranty. Allison and Bullitt publish nothing on their websites about their warranty. So if you know something about it and you can cite where you find it, please comment below. If you're just reading the same forums I am, that's not proof to me that those warranties are great. But the Bass Cat is lifetime, as long as you buy that boat through a dealer. Now, I know for a fact, so when the guys came from Alabama and I bought my boat, they got it from Ross. As I said, open door policy. So, in their case, they got the boat from Ross, and they got the lifetime warranty on that transfer. So, sorry, open door policy. But so the guys who came and got my boat, they actually came to Ross and bought the boat through Ross, so they got the lifetime warranty on that. And the other, I'm going to leave you with this. And sort of while we're on warranties here, I would also say to you, make sure on several of those warranties, one I remember specifically said you had to re-register that warranty within 10 days of the purchase of the boat. So before you buy that boat, I would talk to the manufacturer or your dealer or the person you're buying that boat from. In that case, I'd go back to the manufacturer and say, how do I make dang sure I get that whole warranty transferred to my name so that I've got either the lifetime with the Bass Cat or the remainder of the 10 years on the rest of those hulls. I'll leave you with this, motor warranties. You know what? Let's finish motor warranties before we go. So the Mercury, and I was, again, trying to start assigning value. So the Mercury comes with a 3-year warranty. You can extend to gold or platinum, and there is a difference. The platinum is kind of more bumper to bumper. Gold is kind of more powertrain, is the way I would say it. Platinum covers a lot more electronics, and it's not much more expensive to get that. But I don't care if it's a Yamaha, a Mercury, Suzuki, Honda, Toshiba, what motor you're buying. I would personally assign, I hate bills, I hate unexpected bills. I hate bills anyway, but I hate unexpected bills. I would, if I had 2 relatively identical boats and one had 2 or 3 more years of warranty or a year more warranty, I would assign at least a $500 value per year to that. And we'll talk more about that in the future as we start breaking down pricing on boats. So that's a good place to break. When we come back to part 2, we're going to talk about the 2022 boats for sale, and we're going to start breaking down the value of all those accessories we just talked about and how you can use that to either maybe get a better deal on a boat or price your boat where you can sell it quicker. And I got a ton of data. I think you guys are going to enjoy this. So if you enjoy this, please throw me a like. Please share with your buddies. If you don't subscribe, please subscribe. I don't ask for that often enough. Because I enjoy doing this kind of content, and I know you guys enjoy watching it too. So we'll be back either later this week or next week with part 2, and there'll be at least 3 or 4 parts to this series of the what did we call it again? I got to go back and remember what I'm calling it. The 2024 used boat gang buy. Thanks, guys.